I'm attorney Phil Giacino, and this is the Phil Giacino Show coming at you from Strathmore Studios. Got a great show planned for tonight. We're going to do a forensic look at the Charlie Kirk assassination that took place on September 10, 2025, a tragic day. I remember that day when I first heard he was shot. We were all hoping that I shouldn't say all because there were many disgusting people that were happy that he died, but we were hopeful. Then when I saw the video, I realized there was probably little chance that he had survived. But that's what the show is going to be about. Let's get to it. Camera one. I first learned about Charlie Kirk, I would say a number of years ago, and I didn't know what to make of him at first, because here's a guy that was going to a university, sitting down at a little table, had a little tent over him. He had a microphone, and he put it down occasionally, pick it up, and he would speak. And he had a pretty, I guess, a conservative theme, right? He was religious, patriotic, a family man, against abortion. He knew the scriptures probably better than most priests. And I started seeing these videos of that. And one of the things that struck me was that he was a free speech advocate. And then years later, I couldn't understand why the left demonized him and talked about him like he was a Hitler or somebody that was against free speech in a sense. And I could never understand that, because when you watch the videos, he sits there, he doesn't yell at anybody, he speaks his mind, which I respect, and he would let other people take the mic at a distance from the crowd. And many of them, and that's why it made good videos, disagreed vehemently with him. And some of them were disrespectful. They would talk to him in such a way like to dismiss him. Or, you didn't graduate college, he's a smart guy, he dropped out of college. You didn't graduate from college. And he would also not knock, but say that college for many people wasn't necessary. And I firmly believe that. Not everybody needs to go to college. We need plumbers. We need mechanics. We need electricians. I always say the world would be a pretty bad place if everybody was an attorney or if everybody was a mechanic. We need all these different types of people. And people would get insulted by him saying that. Say, oh, no, you got to go to college. And says, well, what are you majoring in? Some of them would say these ridiculous majors. And he would say, how are you going to get a job? And you could tell by the exchange that here was a guy that didn't have a college degree that was head and shoulders just about above every single person he spoke with. And I'm saying with. He didn't speak to. He spoke with. There was a dialogue. And some of those people left. They put their microphone down and they walked away. Some in shame, some with a new perspective. Because if you keep an open mind, like I'm a conservative, but when I hear people speak, I want to learn why they believe what they believe. I may disagree with them, but sometimes you can find common ground and sometimes you can't. It's very hard to find common ground with some of the far left people, just like they're not going to find common ground with someone like me. So a guy I respected, I bought one of his books. In fact, I started reading it around the time he was assassinated. And I say assassinated because his murder was done for a political purpose. He wasn't killed crime of passion. He wasn't killed because someone was stealing his wallet. Whoever killed him, Tyler Robinson is accused. And I think he did it, but we'll have to see what the jury ultimately says. But here's a guy that was just engaging in free speech. And somebody wanted to silence him. And in death, sometimes we get bigger. Because everybody knows about Charlie Kirk now. Not everybody did back then. So before we get into the analysis of that, I did want to speak about, because we're going to get into ballistics. We're going to talk about ballistics, a rifle, different types of rifles, different type of caliber rounds, not necessarily bullets, rounds, which I call them. Same thing. And cartridges and distances, and people have said he wasn't a military trained guy. Could he have done it? So What I want to do is start with something that you may all have heard about, the single bullet theory in the JFK assassination. So, Danny, let's go to camera 2. November 22nd, 1963, John F. Kennedy, our president, was assassinated, presumably by Lee Harvey Oswald. There may have been other forces involved. He was never convicted because he was killed by Jack Ruby in the basement of a police station. But what I found interesting is, and in many cases, not just the JFK case, we're seeing it now where the defense is saying they can't link that bullet to that gun because it fragmented and shouldn't it have gone through his neck? The neck is not a hard bone. All of that we're going to get to. But in the JFK assassination, Arlen Specter, who became a senator from Pennsylvania, who was counsel to the Warren Commission, said that when the Warren Commission was put together to investigate the assassination, because there were rumors going around at that time, still to this day. And the theory was that one bullet that was found on the gurney, and if you can put that bullet up, Danny, we see that, barely disfigured. I don't want to say it's a pristine-looking bullet, but very, very close. And the single bullet theory, or the magic bullet theory, said that that bullet, fired by Lee Harvey Oswald from the Texas Books Depository, went through Kennedy's neck into the chest of Connally, who was the governor of Texas, hit his right wrist, and then deflected into his left thigh. So that bullet traveled a great distance, went through two men, but the neck of Kennedy, the chest, wrist, and thigh, embedded in the thigh of Connally. And that theory came up because they had to account for all the shots. And years later, we know that there was another bullet that hit a bridge. And there was one person, believe it or not, that got a wound. The only other person, other than the two, Connally and Kennedy, that got wounded slightly from a ricochet. But they didn't know it at the time. They didn't know what that was. But what I find interesting is that here we are years later, and I've spoken to people, and they said, well, the mob was involved. Jack Ruby, who had connections to the mob, decided to take out what was ordered to take out Lee Harvey Oswald. But the point is, that bullet that you can see up on the screen doesn't look like it did all that damage. And in fact, when they first analyzed it, they said, how could, the angle, Connally was in a jump seat. It was a limousine. He was in a jump seat. He was lower than Kennedy. So as the bullet traveled down, went through his neck, and then it did the damage to Connally. So even here, we can debate ballistics. And that happened in 1963. So here we are many, many years later. I wasn't even born when the assassination, I was born 9 months later when the assassination took place. And here we are today talking about the magic bullet, or the single bullet theory. So let's get to Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk, a conservative icon, as I said earlier, I had the utmost respect for that man. I think he could have gone very far. When he came sometimes out and he spoke to a crowd in a suit with a red tie, he looked presidential to me. To the right, he was revered. To the left, they celebrated, which I find disgusting, they celebrated his death. People lost their jobs because of that. And that's disgusting. If somebody on the left, if Biden was shot, I wouldn't cheer. A person lost their life. I may not like the guy, I may not like his policies, but I wouldn't cheer his death. And these people did. They were almost cheering it like it was some pedophile that was assassinated, that was killed, and then people would cheer. I would cheer. But that wasn't the case. He was killed at a university where he was speaking to students, Utah Valley University in Utah, and he was speaking to someone about mass shootings. And one of the last things he said was, are you talking about gang-related violence or not? And then the shot rang out, hit him kind of in the left side of the neck from a distance. Ultimately, a man named Tyler Robinson was arrested. He was turned in. Family, friends, they notified the police, and he ended up surrendering because he resembled the person in the video. They found a rifle that turned out to be a rifle belonging to his grandfather that was given to his family. They also noticed that it had been missing. And I think at one point, Danny, correct me if I'm wrong, the father said, I want to see a picture of the rifle. In other words, to make sure that he still had it. Is that accurate?
Correct.
Okay. And he didn't have it. It was in the woods. Now, as we discuss this case, there are things that I'm going to say that you're going to say, I really think that proves he's guilty. And then Danny, I'm the prosecutor, let's say, Danny's the defense attorney. He didn't graduate law school yet. He's going to make the case of reasonable doubt. Now, Danny and I are not saying he's definitely guilty or he's definitely not guilty. Innocence doesn't come into play in a criminal case. It's guilty or not guilty. And I believe he's guilty, but I have an open mind. And Danny may change my mind even more when he comes up with those things. And as a prosecutor's got to prove your case. A, B, C, D, E. A defense attorney just has to create what they call reasonable doubt. A doubt based on a reason. Not beyond all doubt, not beyond a shadow of a doubt, not a preponderance of the evidence like in a civil case, or clear and convincing. Higher than that, beyond a reasonable doubt. So I'm going to start talking about some of the things that indicate to me that he's guilty, and then Dan's going to speak and talk about some of the things that in his mind, Dan's mind, create reasonable doubt. Now, at a trial, things come out that we don't know about. It's like I always say in politics, we don't know what Trump knows, or we don't know what this person knows. So we're surmising, but we're just going by the record. I did my research. Danny did his research. Danny knows probably more about this than I do. But I'll start with the fact that they found, they saw somebody on the roof running. They believe it's him. He got off the roof and he went to different places. He wasn't arrested right away. But they have some, is it text, Danny, that he sent to his boyfriend.
Right. Yes, the text messages, they do not have timestamps on it, so we don't know what time the messages were sent.
Right, but it's incriminating.
Yes.
And then there was also a letter that he left. They found that rifle. So I could make the argument, unless somebody broke into their house and took that rifle and put it in the woods, Occam's razor, what's the most likely scenario? It was his rifle. They found it in the woods. Could it be planted? Look, we can get to that. Anything is possible, right? We could say a government conspiracy. But it says, just like I have a rifle, Springfield 1908 rifle. Danny and I shot that rifle numerous times.
Years ago.
It is in my safe. Somebody would have to knock me over the head, drag me home, get me to open the safe for them because I'm the only one with the combination, and then steal my rifle and plant it, let's say. All right. So that's the first thing. The second thing, now the round, it's being challenged. It doesn't definitively because it fragmented. So it's not like the magic bullet where it was a bullet and you can test the ballistics. Here, if it's fragmented, it's harder to do that. But they found cartridges from the rounds, one that was fired, because one bullet was fired, his fingerprints, Tyler Robinson's fingerprint on it. They were also on two other cartridges that weren't, or two rounds that weren't fired. There was also some things written on the rounds.
And apparently there was DNA, I believe DNA found on a screwdriver on the roof.
Okay, and that's also telling. But think about this. Yes, there should be, if it's his rifle, there should be DNA on the trigger. There would be my DNA potentially on the trigger of my rifle. Why? Because it's my rifle. It's like if you came in my house, you're going to find evidence that I was here because this is my house. But even if they can't link that bullet or that round, the casing, I call it the cartridge, the casing, had his fingerprints on it, and one of those was at the scene. So how would it have gotten his fingerprint on it unless he handled that round? So again, did someone break into his house, somehow get his fingerprints on the round, later on discard the rifle in the woods, somebody else pulls the trigger so Tyler Robinson's not guilty? So I have a problem with those things. And before I give Danny a chance to punch holes in the case, I just wanted to read the first count. There are 7 counts against Tyler Robinson, and he's in custody. The first count, a capital felony in violation of Utah Code, I won't get into the number, in that on September 10, 2025 in Utah County, the defendant, Tyler James Robinson, intentionally or knowingly caused the death of Charlie Kirk under the following circumstances. The defendant knowingly created a great risk of death to another individual other than Charlie Kirk and the defendant. Other people were put in danger. So it's an intentional murder case. Right? And could he get the death penalty? That's a possibility.
The defendants are pushing for it.
Okay. The defendants?
I'm sorry, I apologize. I don't. Well, Erica,
the wife,
pushing for the death penalty.
The wife is pushing for the death penalty. We'll get to other
or
shows.
Counsel,
right. I'm not a proponent of the death penalty for a number of reasons. Not for morality, but for a number of reasons. But we'll leave that for another day. So now, Danny, the defense attorney, is going to have a chance to talk a little bit about what I just talked about and why he believes there's reasonable doubt in this particular case. You got the floor, Danny.
All right, thank you. So, I'm going to take this as I'm going to really try my best to, because there are some things that I don't want to get into on this. It'll take forever. But there's 3 main questions that I want to bring forward. And the first question is, how did the rifle get to campus? On a day that Charlie Kirk, who knows how to bring crowds, on a day that Charlie Kirk was in town, we don't have footage of Tyler Robinson going with any type of bag or anything that looks like would be able to hide the dimensions of a rifle. So that's the first question. How did the rifle get to campus? The second question, the ballistics don't add up. Anybody who's a hunter, anybody who's ever fired weapons, a 30-06 round simply would not do what we saw it do to Charlie. That's my second question. Now, my third question, it could be a little bit of a hybrid. The bullet, the Carcano, the magic bullet, the original magic bullet of the one from Kennedy versus the Mauser 30-06 that was used to kill Charlie. That we only have, according to what they say, we only have we only have fragments or casings. So we don't have a full bullet apparently, or at least something that can be that can be identified. So those are my 3 questions. So the first picture that I'm going to put up, what you're going to see here is I'm going to bring it full size so the audience can see it. I don't want to lead. I kind of want to see what do you see in this photograph. To give some context to the audience, this is a still from footage from someone's Ring camera, I believe. This was you see him in this video drive up with his Dodge Charger, Challenger, whatever car it was. You see him clearly pull up with it. It's his car. Then he gets out and you see him walk down the road. Now, it appears, and what I've seen a lot of people also share the same sentiment, it looks like he is wearing shorts. And what color do you think what color do you think the backpack is that's on screen, Dad?
Looks blue or gray.
Okay, so it looks blue. Or gray.
I said blue or gray.
Blue or gray.
Okay.
Okay, yes, yeah. All right.
It's a bright day. The light could be shining in a certain way on the canvas.
Okay. Okay. So that's why I wish we could show the video, and we are going to show a video later on, but we just didn't have this video particularly. So this is a photo of him before he was on campus. This photo was taken, I believe, around 10 o'clock. This was described by investigators as like him casing out the joint. So this was possibly him doing a dry run and saying, let me scope out the direct rounds, or let me just do a dry run and just kind of run through the steps of how I'm going to do it. Now, that comes to my first question. How did the rifle get there? Because in this photograph, it does not... And the video clearly shows... This is just a still from the video. The video clearly shows, and this is earlier in the day, he does not appear to be holding anything. His backpack is a normal standard-sized backpack, and he's wearing shorts.
Now, what time was the shooting?
The shooting was at 12:23 p.m.
So about an hour and 23 minutes. I mean, 2 hours and 23 minutes.
This photograph could have been, I believe, maybe 9, 10 o'clock. I could be incorrect, but it's earlier than the shooting. This was believed to be the dry run. So that's my first question. So in this photo, you don't see him with the rifle. And, he parked quite a little ways away from...
Could have been planted earlier.
It could have been planted. It's true. But that, again, Occam's razor, having something stashed. There's cameras everywhere. We don't know right away, but that's just the first kind of picture that I want to bring to the table. So that's him with the blue backpack. That's what I'm going to refer to that photo as. So I don't know how the rifle got there, but I believe it would be very hard to do with shorts on and a backpack that appears to be blue.
Okay.
Now, the second photograph I want to show, and I'm going to bring this full screen as well. This is him in the staircase, and believed to be him in the staircase, and him to be walking up what would be.
And you can make the case that's him.
Somebody could say that, yes.
That's probably what the family saw.
I believe so. I don't know. There might have been other pictures.
Okay.
Now he's wearing jeans here, and if you look,
looks a little suspicious.
It looks a little suspicious in the sense of that looks like a regular person. I don't see anything suspicious about this.
Well, what's
without
interesting
any context.
is about an hour or two before the shooting, he's in shorts with a backpack walking around. Then all of a sudden, I guess he changes his clothes. He puts the hat on. He puts sunglasses on, and he's got a black backpack.
I believe he had sunglasses on his cap in the video, because there's other pictures of him.
This backpack looks black to me now.
You're getting in. Hey! You're getting into my territory here. Now what? Now I'm glad you said that, because what color is that backpack, Dad?
That's black.
That looks like black.
It's a closer shot, but that's clearly black.
Okay, now look at his hat. What color hat do you think that is?
That's a blue hat.
Blue, kind of gray hat here. I don't have the DQ photograph, but all right. So anyway, this is the photo of him in the tunnel. That's the one that the FBI circulated, and that's, I believe, what led to...
so he's on the scene. Right, assuming that's him, he's at the scene, so he doesn't have an alibi in the sense that I was in Florida when this happened.
Yes. I believe he actually admitted to being at the scene to his parents.
That's an important element to convict somebody.
Well,
Not the
when
only,
I say
but
admitted to his parents, I say, he said he was going to be going potentially, but... So now... I want to show this rifle here. This is apparently the rifle that was used.
Grandpa's rifle that they found.
His grandpa's rifle.
With a scope, and I'll get to that in about 2 minutes.
Very unique.
I do want to comment on that.
Very unique. And that's this. Dad, do you have the probable cause affidavit?
I probably do have my papers, but
okay. In the notes, seeing that photograph, which is kind of what led to the chain of events. Essentially, what led to Tyler being brought into custody was his parents saw the photographs, saw the picture of the rifle, and they put they thought, okay, this is probably Tyler. Let's give him a call. Tyler said he was sick. He said he was sick and whatnot. Because as you know, it was a day
It's also
after.
suspicious.
Yes, it was also a day after, so he wasn't right away answering his parents or whatever reason, whatnot. So then his parents questioned him. In the probable cause affidavit, the actual language that they use is that he implied that he did it. He did not confess. And I want to make that very, very apparent, because if they're pushing for the death penalty and why are you fighting this case? Why not plead guilty? Which he has not done. So I mean, to some people to say, why wouldn't he just say, I did not do it? I don't know.
I would be saying I didn't do it if I didn't do it.
I mean,
People who do it say that. Why wouldn't he?
I don't know. I'm just throwing that
Okay.
out there. So that's the rifle. That's the 30-06. Now, what I'm going to put on screen now is the bullets. Excuse me. A comparison of the bullets of the Carcano that killed Kennedy and the 30-06 round that was used to kill.
Still
Charlie.
two substantial rounds.
They're very, very large rounds. Now, these are more modern iterations of them. These are not exactly these are not exactly at all. If you notice the Carcano round, it's very pointed. It's a different round that was used to kill Kennedy. But the cartridge on the right side, what I'm pointing to, this is the 30-06. It has more power behind it. It's primarily used as a hunting rifle in hunting nowadays. Okay. The Carcano round, it's not really used anymore for any particular things. It's more rare. But that bullet, they're different. Some are built for different things. Some are penetrators, but the ballistics, in my opinion, they don't match up. Experts, they don't believe it really matches up. It also is unfortunate that we can't get a reading.
Well, the bullet fragments did show it didn't stay intact.
Well, yes, but that also that kind of I guess if I could say if I had a fourth point or question to ask the audience is what is Charlie's neck made of? Because apparently, I don't mean to be crude about it, but apparently his neck must be stronger than the body, or at least the ribs or the bones of.
I'm going to comment on that.
Small game.
Okay.
So.
All right. Oh, also, Dan, is it possible to put any comments we might get on the screen so I can see them? Because I can't at the moment. If you can. If you can't. I would have to expand it, and it would take up a little bit of but I'm going to try and do it right now. Or if there's something that you think is important, let me know. Let me have a couple of comments. I heard people say that he wasn't military trained and he wasn't an expert. He was more of a fisherman than a hunter.
I'm sorry. I'm going to try and bring something up here. Sorry.
Okay.
All right.
So
some of the comments, you wanted some of the comments.
Right. But
Christopher Ben Cosme, I don't believe he did it. It's so obvious. Richard Rose cannot stand to look at his smug face.
Okay. Now, so a couple of things. I've heard people say that they didn't think he could take that shot. I think that is an incorrect assessment. I disagree with that on a number of grounds. First of all, he had a scope on that rifle. He had used that rifle before. He wasn't shooting for 300 yards. And to give you an anecdote, Danny and I years ago, Danny and I were in Pennsylvania. We were on vacation.
I think I was just graduated high school.
Yeah, I would say under 19, certainly 18. And we were at the Nevele. Villaroma, at Villaroma. And we drove over the border, and Pennsylvania has these great setups where it's an outdoor range, it's free. We just went to the store, got some small dinner plates, and we put them on the pole 100 yards, so a football field away. Now, I have some military experience. Danny has none. I don't have a lot of training on shooting. Neither did Danny at that time. Yet, with a rifle, which is my dad's Springfield 1908, it was made for a righty. I'm a lefty. I had to do the opposite. And he hit the dinner plate, I think it was 7 out of 7. Now, when I say dinner plate, a small plate. Like a cake plate as opposed to...
So it's like the ones you go to like a barbecue, though,
right.
Paper
Well,
plates?
pretty small, though.
Yeah.
Danny was 7 for 7. I was 6 for 7, unless I shot one bullet through the other one. But the point is, Danny did 100%, I did...
And we didn't have a scope, iron sights.
And we didn't have a scope. We have this little thing, I don't even know what you call it.
Iron sights.
Iron sight. And we hit it. So if that kid has more experience than us, it's possible. Okay? He could have done it. There was another point that I wanted to make.
According to his family, he's not really described as a hunter. He's more of like a fisherman, outdoorsman kind of. That's a little bit of a tidbit right there. But I'm sorry, I didn't mean to steal the floor from you on that one. Right.
So certainly the shot could have been made. Okay. When someone's taken into custody, what's their initial reaction? If I was arrested for a shooting that I did not do. I'm going to scream to the rafters, I didn't do it. And if they do the perp walk and there's somebody with a camera, I'm going to say, I didn't do it. I don't believe for everything I read that he did that. And you see him in court. If they brought me in court, I'd say, Judge, I didn't do it. They'd be like, please be quiet, Mr. Giacino. And I would be. But I would say, I didn't do it. I would fight it with every fiber of my body.
Christopher Ben Cosme, my ally in this, like the
My
kid
cousin.
like the kid who shot at Trump, he was shot and killed and cremated a few days later, or a week later, and they are using patsies. Yes.
Okay.
I believe so.
The other thing, too, is this. And I watched a guy, it was a YouTube video, and I guess an expert shooter.
I have that video if you want me to play that. We could show the clip.
Okay. And he said that, look, that bullet pretty much should have traveled through his neck. Okay, I think we could start with the premise that it should have traveled through his neck. However, no two bullets necessarily behave the same way. He said you could fire 7 bullets at something, and there might be 1 or 2 bullets that behave differently, that fragment. Now, it didn't go through just flesh. Let's say it hit him in the neck. You have the vertebrae, you have the spine. Yes, that's a powerful round that generally would have gone through. But depending on the angle it hit, it apparently fragmented. And that's why we may never be able to tie the bullet necessarily to that rifle. We might not be. But with I keep saying cartridges, but with the casing of that bullet that presumably went through his neck because they found the casing, had his fingerprint on it. So if I'm looking at this and I'm saying, look, yes, there could be doubt here and there. A thing is most likely to be what it's most likely to be. However, you can't always say that about everything because sometimes a bullet can behave differently. Look, he could have planted that gun ahead of time. Oh, the other one I wanted to talk about, you said, Danny, cameras everywhere. As a former prosecutor and a criminal defense attorney now, I've done a lot of investigations. And I've been to places, stores, a mall, Smith Haven Mall. You think there are cameras everywhere, Danny? Do you know how many cameras are broken in the Smith Haven Mall? There was a crime committed outside of Macy's into the mall. The 3 stores that had cameras, they were all broken. Right? Another thing I want to say. Remember we talked about how Larry David saved the life of Juan Catalan?
Yes.
All right. If it wasn't for Larry David, he had no alibi. Yet, when his attorney went to Dodger Stadium, where there are cameras all over the place, they couldn't find him, Juan Catalan. They couldn't find him on any video. So when they say there are cameras all over the place, you'd be surprised. There are cameras around a lot of places. They don't always work. They don't always have the right angle. I had a case one time with a vehicular assault, and there were all these cameras, and unfortunately some didn't have the exact angle I want. It was like there's a Zapruder film, remember, in the Kennedy assassination? Nowadays you'd have cameras. Everybody has a camcorder in their, their phone, camera. So cameras everywhere, not necessarily. That doesn't prove much to me that they didn't pick him up on a video because a lot of cameras aren't there. And it's a school. Look, if we were talking about the inside of a casino, maybe that'd be a different story because casinos have cameras everywhere and they work, except the bathroom. They work. At the universities and things like that, and I know for a fact, a lot of these cameras do not work. He could have got in there, left the gun there, and then when he came back. Now, Dan, talk a little bit about when you see somebody running across the roof. All right?
Okay, yes.
All right. Let's, be brief, talk about that for a little bit, and then we'll segue to the next
So now,
item.
that was one of the other points that I was going to make before, the gun disassembly. Because...
Do me a favor, take down Tyler's picture, please.
So now, the gun disassembly part, the video that you see immediately after, the one of him running across the top of the Losey Center, and then he jumps off the roof. I don't have that video. It's hard to get all of that before, but That video, I'm sure everyone's seen it. It does not appear, in my opinion, and I think the general consensus is that he does not appear to be holding anything that would be described the length of a gun. Some say that he.
Well, if you took it apart, the barrel isn't the full length of the gun.
That's
You have
what
a
I'm saying.
stock.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Not the full length of a gun. That's why I'm saying the gun disassembly thing.
Right.
Because, as you know, there was a screw mentioned on the roof that apparently had his DNA in it.
Screwdriver.
So
right?
a screwdriver. So now there's a video that I can post a link to it. There's a video where a guy takes a shot, a simulated shot, and then unscrews the gun very professionally, rolls it up within 9 seconds. Now that's with only one screw in the gun, which is not recommended by any means. But that's what can be done in about 9 seconds if you're only using one screw. In the video, if you watch it, if you hear the shot ring out and you watch the video of the original video of the student in the classroom, you can see him up and running with under 2 seconds. So what I'm trying to poke a hole in is the narrative that you can't disassemble a gun under that time. I don't think that he had a rifle in his hand when he jumped off the building. I don't know if he brought one up there.
Or an accomplice.
It could be. It could be. All I am trying to say is that with my eyes, what I see when I see him jumping off that roof is not somebody who's holding a rifle. It just looks like somebody who's running and who is definitely not carrying any type of rifle or anything that would be this. Even with the gun disassembled, you're still talking about a 4-foot solid barrel with a scope attached to it. And then you have the wooden stock, which is about 1.5 feet, 2 foot. So, I'm sorry, not 1.5 feet, 2 foot, like about, the stock of a gun, about 1 foot long. So, that's my take on the Losey Center video of him jumping off and running out.
All right. Now, the other thing, though, is I want to get to what a former federal prosecutor said about the round that fragmented. But before I do that, there's a video of him walking in a neighborhood where he's wearing long pants and it looks like he's limping or may have the barrel of a gun down his pants. You know what I'm referring to? Dan?
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. I didn't know you were talking to me. Yes.
Okay. So he seems to be limping or has the barrel of a gun down his leg. What's that all about?
So now, in my opinion, this is when I'm going to go back to the tunnel photograph. What on screen right now, you can see him going down the stairs. And if you look in his right pocket, what does it look like you can
Cell
see
phone.
there? It's a cell phone. So that at least tells us that the pants that he's wearing look like they are, you can make out the shape of a cell phone in his pocket. Even with a gun disassembled, the length and the girth, look at that $2,000 scope. I'm going to put the rifle back on screen. Look at that scope that you see, look at that scope.
That could be in his backpack.
It could be, but that takes a long time to undo. And what I'm saying is, even if he did that, you're still talking about the full front end of that gun. So yes, in that video.
So why was he limping then? If I'm an investigator and I get a chance to talk to the guy, I'm going to say, you had shorts on. We've seen you walking. Your gait seems normal. Then all of a sudden,
if that was him jumping off the Losey Center,
right,
that was about a 16-foot drop.
No, but I'm sure they have a video when he was in his shorts walking. Correct? Or that?
And that was in the earlier parts of the video. So that was believed he was wearing those clothing.
No, but the way he's walking.
Yes, but that's a different video.
Okay. Right. I understand that. But I'm saying in one video, if he's walking normal, yes, and another video, he has a limp, did he get it because he jumped off a roof?
What I'm proposing is that it doesn't look, in my opinion, it doesn't look like he's necessarily walking with something in his pants. It appears that he's almost walking like he hurt his leg. Almost like he jumped off of a 16-foot ledge.
How'd you hurt your leg, fella?
Maybe jumping off a ledge.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is, from what I saw, what I'm saying, I'm being consistent. I don't think that he had a rifle when he jumped off the roof. I don't know if he had one when he went up there. I don't know. All I'm saying is the footage looks like him running off the roof, nothing in his hands, maybe like a sweatshirt or something. Definitely not anything that's long like that with a rifle. Even if it was disassembled, impossible to do it in that time in by any standards. Anyone can really look that up. But what I see is somebody who runs across the building with nothing in their hands, jumps down, looks like they possibly hurt their leg. And it looks like what I see is him limping rather than something in his pants and trying to hide it. Because like I said before, in the picture...
So that's telling to me, too. I'd like to know why he was limping. But I want to read something, Dave.
Okay.
It says, well, attorneys for Tyler Robinson claim the bullet that killed Charlie Kirk couldn't be linked to a rifle allegedly connected to their client, because they got to do that. A legal expert tells People magazine inconclusive ballistic reports are not uncommon. This is what he says. Former federal prosecutor Niyama Ramani tells People that just because a ballistics report could not conclusively link the bullet that killed Charlie Kirk to a rifle allegedly used by the suspect, which is the grandpa's rifle, if that's the case, it does not mean the weapon has been ruled out. So, yes, in a perfect world, there's 10 people that witnessed it. There's videos, footage of him pulling the trigger. There's a bullet that they contest. You don't have that here. And unfortunately, that's why it makes for a great podcast or a great show, because there are things I can point to that make him look guilty. There are things that Danny can point to that make him look not guilty. And that's going to be the challenge of the prosecutor. Yes,
so,
Dan.
okay, so going off of what you just said, so about the podcaster angle. So now, there was footage that of somebody taking down a camera just behind Charlie after the shooting.
Okay.
So definitively it would have showed us what we needed to know about, because right away, right off the bat, somebody hearing a 30-06 gunshot to the neck, anybody who knows weapons, that's like his head's got to be on the floor. That weapon, that round, that's a mass that mass flesh damage, trauma.
You would think.
You would think it's what it's designed to do.
I don't dispute that.
My point that I'm trying to make. Sorry, I'm trying to read through. I'm sorry.
Counselor.
Well, I'm trying to go through. I'm managing all this. What did you just ask me? I apologize.
What did I just ask you?
About my opinion on it. I'm trying to.
Well, I covered a number of topics, and what I was saying is there are a number of things that lead people or potential juror, and that's what this is all about. Don't forget, it doesn't matter what I think, what Danny thinks. It matters what the jury that's ultimately impaneled, what they're going to believe. They're going to get evidence from the prosecution. As I said, they have to prove it in a linear fashion. This is what happened, this is what happened, this is what, and, A, B, C, D, E. And Charlie Kirk is dead. The defense attorney could say, maybe it did happen this way, maybe it happened that way. I don't know. There's reasonable doubt, and you want at least one juror.
All right, I apologize. I remember what I was trying to say.
Okay, I figured if I talk long enough, you get it.
So going off of like the podcaster angle, so the rear shot, that would have told us everything that we needed to know about the 30-06 round. So the person that took down that footage, camera. Well, actually, he took down the SD card, left the camera up there at first, which is a little bit strange. I believe his name is Terrell Farnsworth. I don't want to really get into the details on that. Essentially, that would have been very important evidence.
Sure.
I don't know if that evidence was given to the authorities.
Why do you think he did that? For posterity? What's interesting, well, I mean, like I said, we're going to go over the case stuff. We can go over Turning Point another day. But Turning Point lied initially. He said he was told by police to do that. Then somebody... So he's a Turning Point rep, or he works at Turning Point? He
works for Turning Point. He took down the footage. He said the police told him to do that, and then he later on, I believe he said he wanted to protect because he saw people stealing hats, so he said, I wanted to protect the expensive camera. But he took the SD card out and left the camera on the table, so that's strange. Then later on, somebody from Turning Point, a rep, said, no, we told him to do that or something, okay. which he said he never was told to do. But anyway, so going back to just a few days after the shooting, I'm sure people remember they pulled up the grass and they repaved that entire area. Before we... I believe it was a few days after, so I believe Tyler may have been in custody and whatnot. This was before we had any knowledge of any exit wound, we did not know. All we had was the footage on the front. So, as a defense person, what I'm going to say is, why was the crime scene so contaminated so early? I mean, we didn't know if the bullet had passed through at that time. It was not public knowledge, and I'm sure the school wasn't in the know to know if the bullet had actually passed through, because that would have. I highly doubt that the FBI or anybody who would have said no, the bullet went through and it's in the it's somewhere out of his body.
I'm sure they checked the property out because people scattered like the wind.
They did.
It's different. Remember when Trump got shot? If you look at that seating area behind him, those people didn't run. Isn't that interesting?
That is interesting.
They didn't run.
Now you're bringing up something that I didn't really even think about. Now, but anyway, well, also the Losey Center, it's a bit more of like an echo effect. It's more of almost like a
echo chamber.
Kind of it's more of like down, and there's buildings surrounding it, so it's a little bit louder. But the crime scene was essentially contaminated right away. Right away, people were stepping on things. People were taking hats. People were moving chairs like Tara Farnsworth to take down the footage. Then within a few days, they already had ripped up the grass and paved over stuff. So to recover the bullet, if we did not get the footage from behind, we would not have known that there would have been an exit wound. And I don't know if that would have become public knowledge afterwards. And
the autopsy would show it.
I mean, well, the autopsy. Well, okay. So if you want to talk about the autopsy, what did they do with the JFK stuff? If anybody knows the JFK autopsy, anybody will know that there was a lot of tomfoolery, I will say, done during the autopsy stuff. So let's not rule out. Let's not rule out the fact that could have been done with this, because if it was done back then, it's possible that it could be done. Now, I also want to revisit something that you were mentioning about time.
And a lot of that happened in Parkland when they brought the president in.
Yes,
the forces came in and they strong-armed.
Yes,
the guy doing the autopsy and the photographer too.
Yes, but I do want to also go into the idea that Tyler, because he has a perfect ACT score. He's a very intelligent kid by anyone's account, by people that know him, his family. He's described as a smart person. If I'm a smart person and I'm going to look at history and I'm going to look at examples of, if I'm Tyler and I didn't do it, I'm looking at people who have been in my situation and what happened to them. And the perfect example here is JFK. We had somebody like Lee Harvey Oswald.
Right.
He said he was a patsy. He said it. He denied it right off the bat. And then what happened to him? He was killed. Here we have a very similar situation. Tyler has not said the words, "I did not do this," but he's fighting it and he's not pleading guilty.
You're talking about a conspiracy.
Look, I am not saying the words. All I am saying is that
more than one person is a conspiracy.
If I was an attorney, all I would be saying is, all I'm arguing is that my client did not do that. If you want to speculate on what events would have had to have taken place for this to have occurred, where my client was not the one that pulled the trigger, we can go into that. But what all I am trying to focus on is my client. Well, here we go. All I'm trying to say is Tyler may not have been the one to actually have done this. I think it's strange.
Well, of course, that's what the defense is going to say. Look at Stormy.
I'm not his defense. I have no dog. I'm not getting paid by anybody. This is my personal opinion. I also happen to believe that this doesn't make sense. The ballistics don't make sense. This is very strange.
How did his fingerprint, just let me ask you this. How did his fingerprint get on the casing to presumably the bullet that assassinated Charlie Kirk?
Same way that I would say that maybe a bullet, the same way that your fingerprints, my fingerprints are probably on the rifle in your safe from over a decade ago. Maybe we have some rounds in there.
So somebody would have had to take his rifle and his rounds.
Again, I am not the one that's saying that. I'm not saying that. But if you want to invoke Occam's razor, when a 308 bullet goes through a very small area in a human being, when, like you said, it's a rarity. So if we're going to go by what would happen most of the time, statistically speaking, what we saw would not have happened. If it was a 30-06 round, what we saw in that would not have happened.
Let me just say this, though. I know Occam's razor, but I say it this way. I think it's more unlikely that somebody stole his, unless we're talking conspiracy, that somebody
We can
took
talk
it-
conspiracy,
right,
but I would prefer
saying,
it on a different show because this
Right,
would be
but
more
listen,
facts-based, forensic.
if
and
that
respectful.
rifle is found in the woods, we know who had possession of that rifle at some point. Tyler. If his fingerprints on the round, we knew who had possession of the round at some point.
But couldn't it be
Tyler.
argued that this was handled at a different point? And look, I'm not. I don't want to be the one to invoke conspiracy, but you said it. If
Someone would
I
have to steal
touched,
the rifle,
it's,
unless it was him.
if he's described as a fisherman and to family and by
Doesn't
other
matter. It's his
people-
rifle.
No, I understand, but
I'm
it's
described
not
as a
some-
lawyer. I still have a rifle that could have been used in a murder.
Yeah, it's just not something that you would be say. It wouldn't be like your prized possession on a mantle somewhere. I mean, he probably, I'm not. I would
Right.
think if someone's a fisherman, they probably would have a rifle.
Right, but let's link things up again. Let's just say he didn't pull the trigger, that somebody stole his rifle. Let's just say, but he was there that day. You talk about coincidences. You know, there's no such thing as a coincidence.
Well, okay.
He was
if I'm
there
trying
that
to,
day.
Okay, I see what you're saying. If I'm trying to set somebody up, I would think. Look,
He was there.
if I'm gonna play like a CIA handler and say, look, we need somebody who's anti Charlie Kirk because once this happens,
Clearly, he was anti.
Clearly, he was anti Charlie Kirk. So. If you want to go the conspiracy route, what I would say is, let's say he.
And I'm not saying that.
Oh, but we're just going this route just for the sake of
Let's go down
exploring
that
all
path.
routes because what I believe is that he was not the one that actually did this, so there would have to have been other events to have transpired. I do think he was involved in something to take place that day. That's what I'll go on record and say. I believe that he was either under the impression that he was taking part of some type of movement, maybe because there was online chatter beforehand about something big happening in Orem, things like that. I think that maybe he was in some type of he thought he was in some type of movement. Maybe he handed off the rifle to somebody. I don't, this is hyper speculation route. I'm not saying, but it's not, it's not impossible. I think that.
All right, but he would have had to load the round because his fingerprint was on the round that was dispensed when that bullet left the
If
chamber.
you have somebody's fingerprints, I mean, the FBI, they know how to plant fingerprints professionally.
Well, you're talking a damn big conspiracy now.
Well, I'm like I said, I don't want to talk about the conspiracy route on this one. I mean, we could certainly talk about it on another one, but like I said, the main things that I am bringing forward are the bullet. First of all, a Carcano round is smaller, has less energy. It hit a lot more human flesh, and it came out intact, nearly intact. The bullet that hit Charlie had a lot more gunpowder behind it. It was a similar size projectile, hit him from 150 yards away. I think a little bit, 145.
Okay,
And
doable.
the bullet didn't go through, and we don't have a bullet that's intact, which is not consistent with what we had during the
So what are you
Kennedy
thinking? A
assassination.
small caliber bullet did it?
Well, a smaller caliber bullet would have better penetration. You're talking about diameter.
Even a Glock is still a decent sized round.
But yes, but the speed between a rifle round and a pistol round are
9mm.
nearly incomparable.
Right.
But I do think that the ballistics are nearly completely incompatible with what we saw.
And I don't know if we can say that only because the bullet fragmented and we can't rule it in and we can't rule it out.
Well, I would like to say why didn't they give us a picture of the bullet? I mean, they gave us a picture of the Kennedy bullet right away. They said they found it sitting in the backseat of the car.
And that one, right? But here the bullet fragmented. So any
There-
bullet they
that's
show
what
you
they're
be the ones
saying.
that didn't get
Well,
fired.
and that's what they're saying. So what I would like to refer to the ballistics is how does a bullet that can, and there's videos and videos and videos of it cracking 2-inch cow vertebrae. How does it apparently, like I said before, what is Charlie's neck made out of? Because apparently this bullet, when it hit Charlie's neck, apparently there was enough mass or whatever was in Charlie's neck was strong
Look,
enough to stop a
Look,
bullet.
I don't know if this explains it. He's a pretty good-sized guy. There wasn't a child's neck or a skinny or a woman's neck, let's say.
I'm sorry, but nonsense. Look, it's a hunting round. When you aim for a shot on game like deer, elk, or anything like that, you aim for the rib cage, right around where the lungs meet the I forget the exact area, but hunters know what I mean. you're punching right through rib bones. Rib bones are of game are tremendously thicker and larger than what we have in our neck. And those bullets are always, I wouldn't say always, but statistically go through more than not. So it's just very strange that we don't have consistent ballistics with what we are told with the caliber that was supposedly used.
Right, but if a bullet fragments, you might not be able to know the caliber. Right?
What do you mean? When it because are you saying because the bullet fragments? They're saying after it made contact, not in midair.
No, it hits him in the neck. It fragments. They might, because of the fragmentation of that round, they might not be able to say what kind of caliber it was. Because if they could, we would have known what caliber. Right?
So if anything,
they're just going because they found 2 other rounds with the rifle.
Well, I'm sure if they have all the fragments of the bullet, they can certainly just weigh it. And if it weighs the amount of what a Mauser 98 would be
and they might know that. Maybe that's just not known to the public yet.
I think it would help dispel some of these.
It would. Because if it's a 30-06 round, right, then it's not a mystery anymore. Because you could say it just hit him in such an angle. And even that fellow that I was talking about with the video you saw, he said it's possible. Even if it's even if something is unlikely, it still can be possible. It's not impossible, just not likely. And if it hit it at a certain angle and it fragmented, we could say, wow, 1 in a million or 1 in 100,000.
I didn't even look at the time, but right before, I want to show the video. We have a video of the a test.
A ballistic jelly?
Not ballistic jelly. A video of it's just a quick video. This was done by a YouTuber, so I hope this guy doesn't give us a strike on this.
Oh yeah, but when I say ballistic jelly, it's a mold they make.
It's a mold, but there's a bone in it. So I'm gonna play this, and I just want you guys to take a look and just let me know what you think.
Well, we definitely penetrated our water jugs, and I don't think this is going to help to stop the conspiracy theories. His head fell off.
So you're saying there's a bone in there?
Yes, you could see. Oh, damn! You could see the bone in the.
Well, that's not that.
You can clearly see it through the jelly. There's more to do. But that cavitation is not what we saw. And so I just want to let it play out for a few more seconds because you want to see what happened.
All right, guys. I figured this is probably what would happen. I was trying to remain optimistic, but that right there is why people are skeptical on the official story. The 30-06 is a very hard round to stop. So we actually lost the top half of the vertebrae right there, and you can see the bullet hole going straight through it. So I imagine it was probably connected like that, and it just took a massive chunk right out of it. It also shifted the entire thing a little bit to the right.
I'm not submitting this as, say, evidence of that per se. Now, but there's also videos of them doing that with cow vertebrae, 2 inches thick, and the bullet does not face any resistance.
Right. Okay. Now we're going to have to wrap things up. Listen, I really want to thank you for watching this show tonight. I hope you learned something. I learned something. Maybe Danny learned something from me. But look, no matter how you slice it, it was tragic. It was a young man, 31 years old, going to be 32 that next month, had 2 kids, a wife. Like I said, I had the utmost respect for that man. He was an advocate of free speech. He was a patriot. He was a God-fearing individual. He was vilified by the left, but all he did was want to engage in a conversation with people. That's what he did. Imagine someone on the left doing that. They would want to yell at these people that come up. Let's say I took the mic and I said, no, I don't believe in, let's say, systemic racism. Oh my God, you're a racist, you're a Hitler. He didn't do that. He would engage in a conversation, and that was it, right? Like I do. If someone wants to comment on anything I do or when I do a post, feel free to comment. Be cordial. You can disagree with what I have to say. Let's not make things personal. But that's all he did. And for that, he lost his life. So whether it was Tyler Robinson or somebody else, he was assassinated. Somebody pulled the trigger of a weapon, whatever the heck that weapon was that ultimately killed him. Could it be a conspiracy? I hope not. Because if it was conspiracy, that could drag, let's say, a governmental agency into it. And look, Trump was president when this happened. The FBI, I don't think, was looking to hurt Charlie Kirk.
We're going to have a part 2 to this because we have a lot to go through on this. A lot.
Okay. So my point is, like when the Kennedys, there was a motive to get him out of the way. Was Johnson involved?
If you guys want a part 2,
the mafia involved because Bobby Kennedy was going after the mafia. There was you could write a story about that and you could write that story and people would be like, it's ridiculous. That could never happen. But it did back then. Here, I don't see the same level of intensity around getting rid of Kirk. Yes, some wackadoo like the one who shot at Trump, the other wackadoo that tried to shoot at Trump. So we had a president that was supportive of him. He had an FBI that I believe was supportive. Maybe Danny has a different take on that. Maybe we'll do another show as to who had it in for Charlie Kirk. But that'll be for another day. Thanks for watching. Now listen, if you missed this show, I see people sometimes in court, oh, Phil, I missed the show. Don't worry about it. Go to my Facebook page. Go to YouTube. You'll be able to watch it in reruns, just like when you go to Fox News and you miss Gutfeld. They run it again a couple hours later, so you'll get to watch it. One last thing. I wrote a book about divorce. I'm a criminal defense attorney, but mostly what I do, believe it or not, is divorce and family law. I wrote a book called Divorce, A Practical Guide. It's a great read. You read that, you'll learn quite a bit. Also, if you like my show, share, comment. Danny read a few of them. I didn't get to see them, unfortunately. So when I do, I get to comment more about it. So hopefully we'll be able to do more of that in the future. But every Wednesday, there are a few Wednesdays I'm going to be away or something like that. I don't do, but watch the show. Danny and I put a lot of effort into this, and we do it to inform, entertain, and hopefully you'll learn something. And we're not looking necessarily to change people's minds, but if we change a few people from left to right, that's a good thing. You have a good night and enjoy the rest of your week.